Throughout the series that is JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, we meet a lot of stan users, and I mean a lot of them, some more important than others. But regardless of how important or insignificant a stan user may be, they are always given at least a face, even if it is just for a split second. Except for one, there has only been one stan user in the entire series we never actually saw, in both the original manga and anime adaptation. This character is Stardust Crusader's Midler, the best stan user we never met. So even though Midler was never shown in the anime or manga, except for a few panels and frames of just a lifeless body in a generic dress line on the ground, I'm sure most of you are familiar with her design. But why would series creator Hirohiko Araki make such a beautiful character with a unique design just to never show her to the readers, especially a promiscuous female? That would have added some variety to the monotony of male characters. Well, that's because Midler wasn't given a proper design until 1998, nearly 6 years after Stardust Crusaders had come to an end, when Capcom was creating the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure fighting game Heritage for the Future, which was based on the series' most popular part, Stardust Crusaders. The developers wanted to make Midler a playable character in-game, mostly because of her stand High Priestess, but were met with the dilemma of not having a stand user, so Capcom requested Araki to give Midler a design for the game. And since then, this has been Midler. She has kept her simplistic Egyptian belly dancer design and has appeared in future JoJo games and official art books throughout the years. It's something of a miracle that Midler actually got her design in the first place. The fact that the developers for Heritage for the Future went out of their way to implement her, despite having to reach out to Araki and have him essentially create a new character, when other minor villains like Indul, Enya, and Steely Dan were already in the game but never playable characters. So I think it's only fair to appreciate Midler, considering how easily it would have been for this version of her and what Araki has adapted as the canon Midler to just never even exist, and just forever be remembered as a faceless lady lying on the beach with her teeth smashed out of her face. But alongside her promiscuous design and starfish nipple covers, the last notable feature she has is her striking similarities to Diamond is Unbreakable's Yukako Yamagishi, seen performing the same poses and having essentially the same facial features, which isn't too out of character for Araki, especially considering he had recently finished part 4 a few years before designing Midler. So he was still drawing manga roughly around the same art style, and he had drawn very little beautiful characters in the series before, so I assume he just went to Yukako as a reference. So now that we've covered the history of Midler's design and how she came to be, I'd like to talk about the High Priestess arc and her relation to her stand. For the most part, Stardust Crusaders villains are rather flat, so it's rare you get to look at them analytically, but one of my favorite things about part 3 in comparison to every other part is its use of the tarot cards and how each arc and enemy stand usually fits a theme, which would be the meaning behind the tarot card their stand is named after. Unlike future parts, themes of arcs and stands lie more so in their musical references. So Midler's stand High Priestess represents the tarot card of the same name. This card represents mystery and illusion in a literal sense. The card suggests it's time to step away and reflect on your situation, and not to be blinded by manipulation and deception, but to trust yourself and your instincts and not others. Simply, the things around you are not what they appear to be at the time. So with a basic understanding of the meaning of the High Priestess card, let's look at the stand's design and ability. Starting with design, High Priestess is a freaky looking little guy, well, big sometimes. It's reminiscent of an African shaman having tribal markings on its face and wearing a traditional shaman dress, looking something like a straw raincoat. Its expression is very violent and animalistic. Araki stated in his JoJo Veller stand guide, "The host is a woman, but I didn't make her stand very feminine so it would be more unexpected." And this contrast between stand and stand user perfectly fits the theme of the stand's name, High Priestess, playing into the idea that things are not as they seem, but this theme is represented best by the stand's ability, mineral manipulation. High Priestess can take the form of any mineral-based object, so pretty much anything. Rock, metal, glass, plastic, vinyl, and so on. So not only can the stand disguise itself as any object like a mug, razor blade, respirator, or even the ocean floor, it doesn't need to depend on the environment to transform. Just turning into things that blend into the environment help it attack with the element of surprise. It can transform into anything just by itself. It doesn't need any prerequisite, or it doesn't need to use any elements around it. So So along with being able to transform into pretty much anything big or small, it can also do it extremely fast, nearly instantly. And High Priestess will also perfectly replicate any object down to the smallest details, so there's no way to distinguish which one is the stand from any other ordinary object. They have the same properties and nothing changes. The only way you know which one it is when it attacks you. So other than High Priestess's incredibly vague ability that allows it more freedom of use than pretty much any other stand in the series, it follows some simple stand rules. It can be used from short to long distance remotely, but loses power and can only transform into smaller objects the further away it gets from Midler, and damage taken by the stand is also transferred to the user. As seen when Jotaro breaks free from its teeth by destroying them, Midler is found passed out on the beach with all of her teeth destroyed, which is the excuse we are given to why we are never able to see her face. Apparently, teeth destroyed are too gruesome, but everything else we saw in Stardust Crusaders was just a-okay. So a stand's ability that is able to deceive everyone around it, manipulate not only objects but also people, and truly make things not what they seem, I would say is a perfect representation of the High Priestess in a stand ability. And that, along with its design and the dialogue among characters in the arc, like Midler saying it's a shame she has to kill Jotaro because he was her type, even though he's only 17 years old. And Jotaro suggesting that maybe if he could see her, she would be his type too, and maybe they could fall in love, even if it was all just verbal manipulation to get out of the situation. It all plays into the theme of the arc and the High Priestess. Things are not as they seem. Who would have thought that Jotaro might fall in love with a stand user sent to kill him, but who knows, because he never even saw her, and neither did we. Until Heritage for the Future, and she was a babe, so maybe she really would have been Jotaro's type. I mean, she did have a starfish bra. But personality-wise, all we really knew about her was that she was a romantic, and evil of course, you know, working for Dio, but the romantic aspect of her that she showed through her affection for Jotaro relates to her name Midler, as she is named after the musical artist Bette Midler, who is most famous for her romantic ballad, The Rose, which is also a reference to her English dub name, Rose. So for how little of Midler's personality we saw, it was nice to see it have a connection to her name and reference. So Midler, the best stand user we never met. I thought she deserved a video dedicated to her because of how bizarre and uniquely she was created, which for me makes her a special character in the series and some good JoJo lore, as well as it being a miracle that she was ever recreated in the first place.